Listen to each other. How can we come together to solve the problems of Minnesota?
It was 2 a.m. on a quiet Saturday morning in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. The doorbell rang at State Representative Melissa Hortman's home, but the person at the door wasn't delivering good news. Dressed in police uniform with flashing lights on his vehicle, he looked official. He looked trustworthy. What happened next would shatter 2 families and send shockwaves through an entire state. Within hours, Melissa Hortman and her husband would be dead, and another lawmaker would be fighting for his life. Melissa Hortman wasn't just another politician. At 55, she had dedicated her life to public service, working her way up to become Speaker Emerita of the Minnesota House. She was a mother, a wife, someone who genuinely believed in making her state a better place. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable and will be missed by so many.
Husbands have been killed while State Senator John Hoffman and his wife are recovering after surgery. Now, police are searching for the suspect who escaped after a shootout with officers. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said it was an act of political violence.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers also go out to State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who were each shot multiple times. The Hoffmans are out of surgery at this time and receiving care, and we are cautiously optimistic they will survive this assassination attempt. This was an act of targeted political violence. Peaceful discourse is the foundation of our democracy. We don't settle our differences with violence or at gunpoint. In the state of Minnesota, and as recently as last week, in the most closely divided state legislature in the country, we sat down, we worked things out, we debated, we shook hands and compromised, and we served the state of Minnesota together. We proved that it's possible, even in these politically charged times, to find compromise and adhere to the principles of democracy and civil discourse. We must all, Minnesota and across the country, stand against all forms of political violence.
Colleagues would later say, 5 miles away in Champlin, 60-year-old State Senator John Hoffman was asleep with his wife, unaware that the same nightmare was about to visit their doorstep. Both lawmakers served District 34, Hortman in the House, Hoffman in the Senate. They were neighbors, colleagues, and friends who had spent years working side by side for their community. Their Saturday morning routine should have been coffee, newspapers, maybe plans with grandchildren. Instead, a man dressed as a police officer showed up at their homes, exploiting the one thing that should represent safety and protection. The first shooting happened at Hortman's Brooklyn Park home.
During that exchange of gunfire.
The circumstances that unfolded in Brooklyn Park this morning is that we assisted the Champlin Police Department on a shooting. That shooting was made aware by one of our sergeants that it was at Senator Hoffman's home. In hearing that very intuitive sergeant asked our officers to go check on Melissa Hortman's home, the representative that lives in our community, just proactively as due diligence to swing by. That police officer and his partner pulled down the street when they arrived at Melissa's house. They noticed that there was a police vehicle in the driveway with the lights, emergency lights on, and what appeared to be a police officer at the door coming out of the house. When our officers confronted him, the individual immediately fired upon the officers, who exchanged gunfire, and the suspect retreated back into the home.
Was this an actual police officer or an impersonating police officer?
Yes, the question is, was it a...
The gunman, impersonating law enforcement, gained access to the house. Melissa and her husband never had a chance to run, never had a chance to call for help. Within minutes, both were shot dead in their own home, the place where they should have been safest. The suspect's vehicle looked like a police car, complete with police lights, sitting in Hortman's driveway. A chilling detail that shows how calculated this attack was, but the nightmare wasn't over. About 5 miles away in Champlin, the same gunman arrived at Senator Hoffman's home. John Hoffman and his wife were both shot multiple times, left bleeding and fighting for their lives as the gunman disappeared into the night.
Impersonating a police officer. It was not a real police officer. This is somebody that clearly had been impersonating a police officer, again, using the trust of this badge and this uniform to manipulate their way into the home.
So, Chief Ruley, Jenna Shortle, Pier 11, the person not only was wearing a badge, posing as a police officer, when they approached their victims, they had a car with lights and sirens?
Yes, the question is what kind of vehicle, how were they dressed? They did drive a vehicle that looked exactly like an SUV squad car. It was equipped with lights, emergency lights that looked exactly like a police vehicle. And yes, they were wearing a vest with taser, other equipment that would, a badge very similar to mine, that no question if they were in this room, you would assume that they are a police officer.
Governor Tim Walz called this a politically motivated assassination, words that should never have to be spoken about American elected officials. While Senator Hoffman and his wife underwent emergency surgery, an entire state held its breath. Police officers were immediately stationed outside every lawmaker's home, a sobering reminder that public service in America has become dangerous.
Attempt. This was an act of targeted political violence. Peaceful discourse is the foundation of our democracy. We don't settle our differences with violence or at gunpoint. In the state of Minnesota, and as recently as last week, in the most closely divided state legislature in the country, we sat down, we worked things out, we debated, we shook hands and compromised, and we served the state of Minnesota together. We proved that it's possible, even in these politically charged times, to find compromise and adhere to the principles of democracy and civil discourse.
Governor Walz activated the State Emergency Operations Center as the manhunt continued. The suspect remains at large, described as a white man with brown hair, wearing black body armor over a blue shirt and blue pants, still potentially impersonating law enforcement. This wasn't random violence. This was a targeted attack on democracy itself, on two people whose only crime was choosing to serve their community. Melissa Hortman will never see another sunrise, never hug her children again, never cast another vote for the people who trusted her. Senator Hoffman fights for his life, along with his wife, because someone decided their political service made them targets. As Senator Amy Klobuchar said, this is a stunning act of violence against people devoted to their families and public service. The manhunt continues. If you're in Minnesota, stay vigilant. If you see anything suspicious, call 911 immediately. This suspect is armed, dangerous, and has already proven capable of the unthinkable. But beyond staying safe, we must ask ourselves, how did we get here? When did serving your community become a death sentence? Share this story, not for views or likes, but because Melissa Hortman's life mattered, because John Hoffman's fight matters, because democracy itself is under attack when we allow violence to silence those who serve. Follow this channel for updates as this story develops. Subscribe if you believe that truth matters, that justice matters, and that we cannot let violence win. The suspect is still out there, the investigation continues, and we'll be here to tell you what happens next.